All right, we are live. Hello and welcome to the Lion Show. I'm your host, your favorite business coach, Robert Lyon. Today we have the great privilege of talking to Michael Peluso. He's just an awesome guy. He's a founder of True Living. He's a transformational coach. He's really doing big stuff, and I'm just super excited to have him on the show today. So, Michael, why don't you introduce yourself and tell everybody kind of who you are and what you're up to?
Sure. Thank you, Robert. First, it's an honor to be here with you. I'm excited to get to know you better. I'm excited to be able to serve everybody that's on the call. I'm the founder of True Living. True Living is a professional development organization for entrepreneurs and business leaders. What we do is we help manage this system that we call team. I mean, if you think about your life can be broken into various facets, but there's four main facets that we focus on. Time, the ability to manage time. E for energy, the ability for you to manage your energy, which is like your lifestyle habits. A for agreements, which is relationship and team building, and M for money. So we've created this professional development process around those four pillars to success, and we call it the greatest transformational experience on earth. So I'm excited to share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. So wait, it was team, TEAM?
Yes. Time, energy, agreement, and money.
That's so cool, man. Well, before we get all into that, I'd kind of like to what's the story behind how you started coaching, how you kind of stepped into this life?
Yeah. So for me, I felt like there was a bit of an issue. When I was very young, I was diagnosed with something called executive function disorder, which now basically it's ADHD. It's a decrease in the frontal lobe, right? So the frontal lobe is what produces your executive function. And they found that people with ADHD, particularly some people with ADHD, not everybody, has a decrease in the frontal lobe. And so when you look at the executive function, what it does, it does things like it helps you control your emotions. It helps you use visualization as a process. What I found was at a very young age, I was sitting down in a therapist's office and they're working on getting me to perform better. And there was a general context that was there, which is, okay, well, there's something wrong with you and we need to fix it. And I think that when you're really young like that and you ask yourself like some powerful questions, like, okay, is there something wrong with me? Like, and what do I need to fix? I think it has you go on like a very young spiritual journey right off the bat. So for me, True Living kind of was birthed out of this idea of, self-acceptance. And so what we found is that and as Einstein says, you can't solve a problem with the same thing that created it. You can't solve the idea that there's something, you can't, if you chase that idea, it just creates more of it. In other words, if we sit down and I say, hey Rob, what's wrong? And you start giving me answers to what's wrong, we're now in the space of there's something wrong. And we don't leave that space until we decide that there's nothing wrong and start talking about what we actually want to accomplish. So it turns out that the same way that we can do that and that therapists are doing that and they're sitting people down and they're having this idea that there's something wrong and then trying to go out the witch hunt to solve that there's something wrong. What we found is that 100% of the time that you're already perfect, whole, and complete right now. And that we can believe in the illusion that there's something wrong, but that's a filter that we put on the present moment. That's not the presence of something. And from that space, we can powerfully create our life. And that's really what birthed the True Living philosophy, is saying, well, hold on, wait a minute. If I'm perfect, whole, and complete right now, what are the things that erode that prevent me from leaving that space of being perfect, whole, and complete? And how can I build a system to keep me in that space? Said differently, when Michelangelo was asked how he created David, he said, I took a piece of marble and removed what wasn't David, right? So in that same way, I believe that, and I think Joseph Campbell was quoted in saying, most people are seeking the meaning of life, when in fact, what they're really looking for is the experience of being alive, which is like a right now phenomenon. It's like if you think about it, like, honestly, like, how insane would it be for you and I to be like, okay, there's a problem here, let's go solve it. Right. And then, and I mean, it's an adventure, don't get me wrong, but it just doesn't lead to like real growth or real, like, the kind of mindset that produces results. So with the combination of executive function and the idea of there's something wrong with me, and then the witch hunt to solve that something wrong with me, to find out that every person is perfect, whole, and complete at the level of their being, then from there, maintaining and developing systems to help entrepreneurs, that's really been what brought True Living into existence. And it's an ever-growing experience, but it does start with that fundamental understanding of, hey, every person is perfect, whole, and complete at the level of their being. And then from there, we look to express ourselves. And what is that going to look like? That's unique for each person, but we want to try to build a system to further that expression, if that makes sense.
Yeah, man, that's so powerful. I don't remember what book I read or where I heard it, but when somebody said "you are whole" to me one time, like when I was growing up and life was weird, and like just hearing that was so like revolutionary. It's like you're right, like I am whole. There's nothing really wrong with me. Like we have all these things outside of our existence, outside of our life that can diminish us or bring us down. But when you really look at it and you really just appreciate how awesome each and every person is, to say, I already am whole. There's nothing missing is so profound. So
Yeah.
that's a cool start to your philosophy, man. That's sick.
Yeah.
So who are your like target audience? Like who are you mostly trying to help, or what does it look like?
So we're helping, we really, there's people that focus on the business, and then there's people that focus on the entrepreneur. Our main thing is the entrepreneur. I have a background as a health practitioner. I've been very fortunate to have an international client base, people flown out from other countries to spend like weeks with me. And when I was taking care of them and developing that professional relationship with them, one of the things that I realized pretty, right off the bat is that, as entrepreneurs, we have a tendency, like I think that most entrepreneurs are completely aware that they're fully responsible for their life, and at least sometimes they pretend not to be, but that was really, like why entrepreneurs, because the path of least resistance towards that radical responsibility is right there. I mean, if you're not making money, it's you. If if you're late, it's you. If you're not healthy, it's you. You're not blaming it on the proverbial boss, so to speak, of your life, even though that may be your wife or whoever you project it into. I felt like, entrepreneurs was a great place for us to start. And that's how I've been fortunate to work with them. And that's kind of where we started there with True Living. And we just stayed in that niche. We just love working with entrepreneurs and business owners and people, business leaders. And that includes C-class executives and, that free-spirited, anybody that's in that space of taking radical responsibility, like, man, there's nobody that's going to produce success in my life other than me,
Right. Yeah, man, I love it. I think the future belongs to the entrepreneurs, man. I feel like the job economy is kind of dying. So I think it's just awesome. You got to help entrepreneurs. My definition of an entrepreneur is somebody who bears the risk. We take risk, we take the chance, we go after opportunity. And I think anybody that can really empower entrepreneurs or is fighting for that is fighting the good fight,
Oh, they're change makers, man. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, every innovative idea has been brought into the world by an entrepreneur, or an entrepreneurial spirited human being, at least, Yeah, that's right. And I think like one of the other things that we kind of focus on is just how the brain works with language, and how when you're an entrepreneur or a business owner, you really are curating the conversation of your organization as that leader. I mean, you're in your marketing message, in the way that you communicate with your employees. What's different between like a church, one church and another church is their use of language, which curates the belief, right? A belief is a thought that we agree with. And thoughts often happen in language. And so if you look at, one area versus another area, you see, or one business versus another business, you see language as being the delineating factor. And I think one of the cool parts about being an entrepreneur is you really you're really responsible for curating a marketing message that you feel changes the world, and accurately represents what you're doing. And I think that you're also at the helm of creating a really cool corporate culture, utilizing positive language and things like that.
Yeah, man. So when you're working with all these entrepreneurs, what do you see as like the number one problem that you help solve? Like what are the big issues?
Ooh, there's a few. I think that it all boils down to mindset. That like I look at it, it's as an entrepreneur, right? You have a vision, then you take that vision and you break it down into a process, and then you take actions on that process. One of the biggest things that I see, so going back to our team philosophy, right? I think it starts there with time. The brain can't tell the difference between a vision and a memory. And our relationship to time is the relationship between visions and memories. Literally, like in other words, time is an idea that we carry inside of our mind. And there's no, like you see the clock on the wall, the clock is moving. My relationship to whether or not I have time or I don't have time is my relationship to the memories that are active in my brain, as well as the vision of what I'm trying to hold in the future, and the way that they're dialoguing with each other, as a filter in the present moment. So I would say from time's perspective, most people never sit down and really master time, just like study of time. So one of the things that we do to master time is we have this process that's called scheduling the schedule. You literally set aside, you make an agenda of everything that you want to accomplish. You sit down once a week and you look at like, okay, one, what did I want to accomplish? What am I committed to accomplishing based off of this agenda, which is like my quarterly goals? And then did I fulfill on that last week? And you need to have your core values on there. You want to, know your balanced direction. What is your health goal? What's your business goal? What's your family goal? What are you driving to accomplish in like a list form? And then you look at, what did I accomplish last week? Am I in line with that? What's essential for me to carry over this week? And then schedule it. And I think that sitting down and getting honest with yourself over what you did last week and what you're going to do this week is probably one of the most profound mindset shifts that I believe entrepreneurs can have around time management. That's a really important one. And you know what? You don't want to just follow any process with that, because when you're thinking about your future week, what you're doing is you're creating a vision for you to live into. And the thing about a vision is that the way that the brain works, the vision doesn't have an emotional imprint yet, not at least not a strong one. So it's important for you to be in a state of positive and creativity when you ask yourself, what do I want to accomplish next week? Because that's going to create literally a positive mentality. We were talking before about how, if you talk about what you don't want, it expands. And if you talk about what you do want, it expands, and you sit there with a therapist and, you say, well, what's your problem? Right. So, but if you're in an emotional deficit and you ask yourself, well, what am I going to create this week? What you're doing and you're stressed or you're overwhelmed, what you're doing is you're creating visions that are in line with that hormone. And so you'll inevitably live into a vision that has stress and overwhelm right into it. And I think that this simple habit of sitting down, writing out everything that's in your mind on a piece of paper, meditating and finding gratitude, then looking at your agenda and saying, am I in line with what I'm committed to? Let me do those micro tweaks and then let me move forward. I think that that's probably one of the most profound things that we could leave anybody doing, which is the study of time. But also every one of those steps is designed to evolve the frontal lobe, to involve your executive function. So that's like one little thing that I think that is one of the biggest things that we see when we're coaching entrepreneurs is that when they go through life, they make agreements to accomplish shit that they have no relationship to how long it will take. And then they stress out. And when they're stressing out, they're then thinking about how to solve the problem, which creates more ideas that are literally in line with the emotional imprint of stress.
Yeah.
How's that for a mind blower, right?
Yeah, man. I need to schedule now. I love that.
Yes. I mean, it's wild, right? So let me share a little bit. So for example, in very real time, I'd like you to think of Donald Trump. And so just imagine Donald. Now, this isn't a political conversation. I just use that word because everybody can think of him and everybody's got their own opinion of Donald Trump. And quite honestly, I don't give a shit what anybody's opinion is. We're just using him as an example, right? So I'd like you to think of Donald Trump. Just go ahead and see him. Right. And now I want you to take Donald Trump and put a green hat on him and just make that green hat super vivid. Right. So you can see Donald Trump's there and he's got a green hat. And then from that green hat, I'd like you to put him inside of a golf cart. So you've got Donald Trump with a green hat on inside of a golf cart. Now, can everybody see that? I'm sure everybody can see that, right? So now what I'd like for you to do is I'd like for you to take Donald Trump with the green hat on inside of the golf cart and put it in front of Walt Disney World with the fireworks going off in the back. Right. So now if I said, I'd like you to think of Donald Trump, what's the first image that comes to mind is this new novel vision that we created, which is interesting because what we did is we took one memory, another memory, another memory, another memory through language. Literally, I said, I'd like you to think of Donald Trump. And you said, what would Donald Trump look like? And your brain connected one area of the brain to another area. And then we just created this vision. So one, the brain can't tell the difference between a vision and a memory. If I were to say that that's the Donald Trump visualization exercise, actually, let's give it a new name. What's Donald Trump and Disney World sound together? Like Disney Trump. Trump exercise. So now what I did was so that's the Disney Trump exercise. Now what we did is in language, we just gave it a label. And so now we can refer to it later. If we said, well, that was remember the Donald Trump Disney exercise that we did? We could literally pull forth that as a memory, but that was a vision Donald Trump's never been with a green hat on in a golf cart at Walt Disney World. I made that shit up, right? So now here's what happens. The way that our brain is pulling forth information is much like Google. It's like a blank search bar. And we put something in that search bar, and the brain, being the greatest goal-achieving machine on earth, says, your wish is my command. So if we say, what does Donald Trump look like with a green hat on? Your brain says, here's the idea. But what we do so often is we ask ourselves some pretty disempowering questions that produce uncertainty. For example, what should I do tomorrow? What should I do tomorrow? See, that's an insane question, because our sense of should is a past-based notion. We don't even know that tomorrow exists. So the idea of should doing anything tomorrow, it jams the brain. We're effectively trying to take certain files from our past and bring them into the future. And the brain knows the difference, because now it's trying to be certain of something it knows it can't be certain of. And that's where we see a lot of the shutdown, thinking that we're going to know how to do something that we've never done, and not giving ourselves the freedom to create an idea of what that may look like, and then living into that past. So in that same way, Donald Trump has an emotional imprint. And what happens is maybe that's good, maybe it's bad, right? But when we connected Donald Trump with the green hat, with the golf cart, with Walt Disney World, effectively what we did was we took the emotional imprint and we sourced it out to other images. So in the same way that we can do that, if you're in a grateful setting and you're feeling grateful and you ask yourself a powerful question like, what would really make me happy this week? Your brain, being the greatest goal achieving machine on earth, is going to bring forth that image into your search bar, right? And then from there, you're going to get an image of it. And then you're going to reverse engineer that. And now all of a sudden you're intentionally living, but you're intentionally living through the power of utilizing your brain as the greatest goal achieving machine on earth. And so it's that micro twist. And what's interesting about it is that the brain relates to itself on language. So this conversation that I'm having right now, and everyone that's listening, I'm actually altering the way that your brain works with itself, the same way that your brain now understands Donald Trump, green hat, and that we can label something and pull it forth into the present moment like Google. The brain is getting the joke of how it does that all the time. And when it gets the joke, all of a sudden it's like, holy shit, I can create anything that I want for my life. And how can I serve? How can I give back? And it starts asking itself better questions. And when we ask ourselves better questions, then we're able to access better visions from a place of positivity. And that's what determines the quality of somebody's life. So anytime somebody's stuck, you just say, well, what are you stuck with? And if they can get it down to a statement, then you can often see both sides of it. For example, and then I'll shut up for a minute, but for example, if I were to say, man, you have so much potential, you can hear that as, man, Mike really believes in me. Or you could hear that as, I'm not good enough now. Both of them are limits inside of the domain of language. Which one did I mean? See, at all times, we're constantly looking to take the information with language and bucket it. Is this good or is it bad? Is it good or is it bad? We're trying to, because that's the emotional imprint that allows for it to become relevant inside of our mind. So if we're very aware of how we utilize language, and we recognize that when we're stuck, we're probably asking ourselves a paradoxical question that's jamming the Google search bar, which is the brain, and we're able to get it out on a piece of paper, oftentimes just that little slight breakthrough and being able to see both sides, it's enough for us to be able to create something. And what's interesting is you can see that in language, I just created that there's two sides to language. And now we're present to that there's two sides to language. And me pointing this out is further example that we're creating our reality, at least the way that we see ourselves in reality, using language, which is, I think, the coolest part of being an entrepreneur, because now you can go out, especially coaches and entrepreneurs, you can go out there and literally change the world with your language. And I think that's what a lot of influencers are doing. I think that that's what a lot of us, have an opportunity to do, being at the helm of your life as being an entrepreneur, business owner, and anybody that's into that mindset stuff.
All right. You're starting to freak me out, man. It's good.
Yeah,
it's so powerful. Yeah.
Oh, I know. It's
so let's take it a step further. So how can we use this to be as powerful as possible? Like you say, we visualize what we want our lives to be, and then we schedule to be in alignment, and we hold the gratitude and we hold the emotion of it already coming to us. Like how do you look at it? How do you make it more powerful?
Yeah, so I think that becomes the first thing. And then the other thing that we've done here is have the conversation I'm having be part of our organizational culture, because that allows us to be accountable to that. Like, me through my language. Everybody here has an image, a unique image. When I said Donald Trump, everybody thought of a different Donald Trump. Everybody's image of Walt Disney World is slightly different. So when I'm curating and cultivating what I'm going to accomplish in our organization and with our clients and what they're doing, I think that having that level of accountability there really solidifies things. Also, from a practical standpoint, recognizing that you and I are connected, and that we're ultimately constantly, as human beings, looking to contribute. We're looking to contribute, we're looking to grow. And so if there's ever the sense of a disconnection, it's not at our level of our being, it's in the level of communication. And it lets us focus on areas that we can then, it's not a personal thing, it's how we're communicating. And since we both want the same thing, let's look at what we're communicating and work that out. So I think that it begins a conversation that becomes more effective. And then inside of that as well, practically speaking, when you're having conversations with customers or employees or anybody that's in any sort of sales position, what you're ultimately hearing is you're hearing, because there's the present moment, you're able to then label it and say, well, is what this person's sharing with me, is it a fear? Is it a frustration or a challenge? Okay, right? Because we know that if we continue to expand that in that direction, all we'll get is more of what we have, right? Is it a want, need, or desire? Maybe. Okay, got it. All right, so now that we're calibrated, what's the next step? What is our next step actually going to be? And I think that from a sales perspective, it becomes very powerful, because you're not listening to things through an attached filter of how this person is impacting you personally, or what their conversation means for you. You're more looking at the conversation and saying, how do we find an agreement here? How do we, what does this person really truly need? Because it gives you a new opportunity to listen from a deeper space.
Yeah, so we're basically mastering the language of how we talk to ourselves, how we talk to others, and how our business runs, with like our message in alignment with our deeper purpose or something like that.
Yeah, yep, and it works really quickly, and it allows you to you increase your sales conversion. You're able to cover a lot more territory, because you're listening to what you're creating with your language much more than I guess part of it also is the art of listening, right? I mean, that's really a powerful component of it.
So like when a customer comes and wants to be coached, you do one-on-one, and I think I saw like you have like a group retreat or something like that too. Is that the key thing? Like, you guys focus on how your life's going to be, the language you use for your life and your scheduling or something like that?
Yeah. I mean, I think the first step is, for us, so it starts off with scheduling, right? And, team, time, and then we look at health, right? And health can be broken down to what we call 7 essential lifestyle habits. And honestly, they're just what the dog is doing, right? Things like hydration, making sure you drink enough water, nutrition, sleep, thoughts, breathing, exercise, and hygiene. And I think the first thing for us to really do is kind of be able to recognize that and have faith that you have an intelligence that's guiding you at times. And when you're like in that internal argument over the cookie versus like the apple, the proverbial apple, right? That there's a part of you that somewhere along the way you made an agreement, and now that agreement is at conflict, and which one are you going to honor? Like, how do you get beyond that internal dialogue? I think that becomes really valuable. So that the conversation really grounds you out in the present moment and what you're experiencing inside of your body, right? And then from that point, you can really engineer your time, you can engineer your health, because once you have that vessel of time, then everything else lives in it, right? So once you have a schedule, then it's like, okay, well, let me schedule my lifestyle. From the lifestyle, we then move to agreement, right? And agreement is those conversations. It's scaling your team. It's KPIs, right? It's standard operating procedures and making sure that, hey, listen, this is your job. Do you agree that this is your job? Okay, great. Okay, excellent. Do you have any questions about this? Okay, these are the metrics that we're going to look at success for. And if you have any struggles, please let me know, right? And that becomes around agreement. And agreement is also your beliefs. You have a thought, and then you agree with it. And then from agreement, we really look at money and structuring financial freedom, right? Because because there's no reason why anybody shouldn't have financial freedom. We're all here together. And for me, you asked earlier, like, how did I get into this? When I started, so I have a background as a holistic health practitioner. I've been fortunate to work with top executives all over the world. And when they came out to me, I get the people that nobody can figure out what the heck is going on. And the reason why no one can figure out what's going on is because we're so far down the bunny trail of where we're looking. For example, oh, I got a shoulder injury. Okay, well, what's going on with your shoulder? Well, I have a torn ligament. Well, so most people would take a look at the shoulder, but if we look systemically, we could see, oh, well, those ligaments are torn because we have an overabundance. We have a ton of stress, and this person's drinking a ton of coffee, and now all the ligaments in the whole body are going. And not only do they have a shoulder ligament, but they've got low back pain and they've got a bloated gut. So how do we address that collectively, right? So I think that and I'm kind of lost in the question a little bit, but I think that looking at that approach and then saying, all right, how do we balance ourselves? How do I put in a system that really works? Because honestly, Rob, like, here's the deal. When we feel really good, we feel really good. Yeah. What produces success in someone's life is having the guardrails. Like, if you think about balance, there's no physiological feedback other than feeling really good. So if you put a system in your life, that system should give you physiological feedback so that you keep on a straight and narrow. For example, accountability is part of that system, right? Lifestyle habits and things like that are part of that system. Your schedule is part of that system. That's not, do you have to go to work? No, you feel great when you don't go to work. But if you don't go to work long enough, then you won't be able to pay your bills. And then, now the pain teacher is kind of showing up and teaching you that you maybe should have gone to work, or at least finalize the project that you were working on. So how do you get that pain teacher to show up and keep you honest to your own goals? I think that becomes the larger question, and how we can really bring this into a practical dimension.
Yeah, I'm all about, like, I've been really kind of figuring out, like, alignment, because I feel like anybody can achieve almost any goal in life, if they really crystallize in their mind what they want, and then they stay in alignment with that goal. And when you said guardrails, that was just like, ding, the light went off. Yeah. Like, you got to stay in the guardrails of your alignment, man. That's killer.
Yeah. It's like, I always think of it like a bowling alley, like you have those like little bumper things, you don't need them. You don't need them, but you have them there so you can,
hit the strikes. Right?
Exactly. I'm always thinking, like, what is going to be my early physiological feedback so that I know that I'm in a good place. For example, one of the things that we do for a long time when it comes to nutrition is we just ask people, send me a picture of your food. Just send me a picture of your food. WhatsApp, very simple. Send me a picture of your food. It's amazing the transformation that people have, because that one little click and sending it to somebody from that accountability structure has them like totally modifying their diet. All I did was ask them to send a picture of their food. So, and like when we talk about, scheduling, all I did was ask you to sit down with an agenda of whatever you want to accomplish and schedule it. Right. Yeah. So, but it's amazing. You wouldn't believe the stress that people deal with when they go to do it, because it's like all of a sudden, all those agreements that they have, I told my wife I was going to do this and I was going to build this project and now they're trying to get it into 24 hours and they're pulling out their hair and it creates a whole existential crisis. So it sounds easy, but you got to have a process to it.
So cool, man. So what I'm kind of gaining is, like, this is like a holistic approach to an entrepreneur, man. That's like you took your health expertise and you've kind of morphed it into a whole transformation, which is really cool. I guess I got to ask the $1 million question though. Like, so how are you helping people become financially abundant? After all these things are in line, what's the next thing for that?
Well, it's interesting because I think that financial abundance is something that you want to pass from one person to another. Like for me, the mindset of financial abundance is like, okay, am I financially abundant? Yes, great. How do I create financial abundance for other people inside of my life? So I think that becomes a question worth asking. Like, how do I set somebody up to be financially abundant? How do I create time freedom for them? How do I create the health freedom? And so that seems to be a formula that continues to work. But we've been doing, but I'll tell you what, the bottom of the line is this. How much time do most people spend suffering each day? Like in their head, not taking action. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's like ridiculous. Some people are like an hour, some people are like 2 hours, some people are like 8 hours. Right. Yeah. So what happens is, and the other thing is I would argue that most entrepreneurs know what they need to do. Like, yes, we have strategists, that can come in there and help, but most entrepreneurs know what they need to do. It's the jamming of the brain on a regular basis that prevents them from taking massive action or from analyzing a situation without getting their emotions involved. And so as soon as we address that one thing, when we remove the state of suffering from someone's decision making so that they could see the present moment clearly, not attached to the outcome, and start taking massive action, the growth there is exponential. And when you combine that with the mindset of looking to serve others in their own organization as well as the world, it just creates this phenomenal synergy. So yeah, I mean, and my family owns a marketing agency. We're top 25 in New Jersey. We just launched part of Verizon's website, so we know a thing or two about marketing, and I've been in sales for a while. So I have that going for me as well, and that's definitely carried through our processes.
Well,
but that's not the point. That's not the point. You can hire somebody. You could hire somebody, and you should be hiring people because, it's delegate or die, I think, in today's environment.
For sure. Man. Oh, man.
But that's it.
So cool.
Yeah. But it's like financial freedom. Like, it's literally like, you see it all the time. It's not a big mystery as to what we should be doing. It's just whether or not we're going to do it on a regular basis and show up every day and take care of ourselves so that we're thinking clearly and feeling really good. So I think that's a little bit, I think, and the other thing is I think that we often try to go out there and try to reinvent the wheel in areas that don't necessarily need to be reinvented, which is a whole nother conversation for another ego. You know what I mean?
For sure. How long have you have you been building True Living?
Yeah. So True Living has been a lifelong project, but I would say really has taken off in the last 12 years, more so in the last 2 years than anything else. I mean, we started off, like I shared, for me, instead of going to college, I traveled all around the world and studied under some really amazing people. And they gave me an outside of the box look on health. Which was where we kind of started. And, what happened was, Rob, I was taking care of professional athletes and amateur athletes that were, I shouldn't say amateur athletes, traveling athletes, national level athletes that were also millionaires and owned very large businesses. And so I was fortunate to spend a lot of time with them and analyzed how they're doing what they're doing. And that, when I started to look at that, and I said, holy shit, like money has nothing to do with it, because these guys had money. And I started to see that there was a void in a sense of fulfillment that was like, and it was just the way that they were, they may have been really competitive and really good in one area of their life, and they all varied, but there was something that was missing there. And taking care of them for years, like some of these clients were 5-6 year clients of mine. So when you see a small group of people consistently over a long period of time, it gives you a different perspective than being the 14-minute or 7-minute doctor visit.
Yeah.
So that's where things really began. And what happened was I just literally, and people think they overcomplicate this. This is what I tell everybody. If you have a pen and paper, right? This is how you build your business. You fall in love with somebody, you go up to them with a pen and paper and you say, what do you need? You literally, okay, great. You make that list of what is that you need? How much time is it going to take? How much energy is it going to take? What do I need to agree? What's the financial end? You go out there, you build it, you bring it back to them, and you give it to them. And then as soon as you give it to them, they're going to have another freaking problem. And then okay, well, what is it that you need this time? And there you are with your list. And you just literally, so you start doing that over and over and over again. And that becomes the processes. And, you literally pass on that list to an employee. Here's what you're going to do. This is what I did. And that's what kind of drives growth as an entrepreneur. It's as easy as having a damn piece of paper and a list. I'll share the house that I'm in right now is a national level athlete, right? Right now we're doing some stuff in, and not international level athlete. You come into his home, everything's laid out, the list's there, everything's there, and just you put the list, you make the list and you accomplish the list. And I think that we overcomplicate things. Like, well, what if I don't know what to do? That's okay. Put it on the list and then go find out what to do. Like, well, what if I don't, do you know how to write? Yes. Okay. Let's boil it down to something simple. And so that, I think, has been the heart of everything that we've created here at True Living was solving a problem for someone and keeping that tool and then optimizing that tool by using that same tool with a bunch of other people. And that's what created our philosophy. That's how time showed up. Literally, I was like, well, how do I know what they're doing and what they're not doing in their 24-hour period? We better help them, better get them to schedule, but how do we do that on a regular? Okay, great. Well, now that they're doing this on a regular basis, what do they need to fill in there? All right, well, now we need health, and then I was like, okay, well, now we've got all this stuff, but they're bitching about the price of organic food. We better make more money, so it's just been this ever growing thing. But I think, of all the games you could play with your life, for me, it's been pretty fulfilling.
Yeah, that's so cool, man. Do you have any cool like success stories that come to mind with some of your clients?
Oh yeah, there's so many. Which one would I want to share though? Yeah, I mean, there's one, for example, the guy owns an engineering firm, and he's an international racer, and he's racing this international race. I'm not going to get too much into it, but he's racing this international race, and he goes out there and he's just winning, and he's just a winner all the time. And he reached a point in his life where I think that his wife, what had happened was his top executives had taken over part of his organization, and they had left, and he really was like not happy about it, and like really went after them, sued the hell out of them. We're talking like $40 million a month type of lawsuits, kind of a thing. And one of my favorite parts about this story was that I'm sitting there and we're having this conversation, and we're present to like a lot of change. Wife's upset, looking at leaving him, just a lot of different things. And I'm looking at him, and I've realized that like what he had in that moment was a story, and he was living in the past, and I just refused to believe any of his bullshit. Like, he's sitting here trying to convince me that he's somebody that he's not. He's literally like stuck in the story of all these things that have happened, but yet the person I'm looking at is an international champion who's built multiple businesses, can build another business, found the girl of his dreams, and then chose to not spend time with her. It was just literally that other side of, you have so much potential. It was, we were saying earlier, you have so much potential, you can take it. He was just stuck on the negative side. And the other side, if you meet this man, he's fucking incredible. He's just an incredible guy, And so, excuse my language, but so I think that, like, for me, those are the success stories. It's a moment, and you just consider the other side, and all of a sudden there's just like a light that shines through where you're like, oh my gosh, I actually can do anything. And just because I was labeling and defining this moment as like less as me having some sort of deficit, the moment I consider the other side, I see that it's equally valid, and why not go out there? And so for me, that was really rewarding, because he moved, he found the woman of his dreams, he relaunched his business, and now I get to see the Facebook posts of him traveling all over the world. And I think that's pretty cool. I think that's pretty cool. I mean, we have other, to me, that's been one of the most fulfilling ones. I mean, I've got a guy, from somebody who was like, hey, Mike, I'm a surfer. I'm like, okay, but you're living in New Jersey and you're pretty far away from the beach, bro. Maybe why you're suffering is because you're defining yourself as a surfer. So you either define yourself as an entrepreneur, that works for this company, or we need to move. Yeah. And he wound up moving. And then I get the pictures of the house with the beach and the orange tree that he's got. I mean, it's pretty cool. Our marketing agency, that's one. Our marketing agency just did. We just tripled during COVID, taking on massive projects. But I think what's great about these projects is they're like super creative. Have you ever seen like Squatty Potty?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So we've been hired to do like that kind of work. I mean, those are like really large, over $250,000 budgets for like 3-minute films that you can sink your entire team into. Like it's a film, and so that kind of stuff really excites me. I just think I've just been really fortunate. I would say that the key to success is honoring that when somebody comes to work with you, it's because they're amazing. You know what I mean? It's because they're amazing. And then just looking to like be really present to that amazingness with them. I think that that's the real magic. And when you're there and then you give it a label, boom, hashtag true living, you know, or whatever the hell you want to throw at that moment. I think it then becomes a reference point to forever remember. And then when you remember how amazing you are, you know, just in that moment, in the now moment with a simple freaking label, it gives you a reference point to then bring that amazingness to every experience that you have. Just like before, when we used the word Donald Trump, right? Now we've got this new amazing moment that we can then, from that moment, combine with all of our other images and create the life that we want. So to me, I think that that's if there's one particular story that I really love, it's just the story of that present moment and really being connected with people and seeing people see themselves as amazing as I see them, you know, and I think that, to me, that's the magic of it. And I think what's cool about it is this. Here's another thing, because you can see that I'm passionate about this because I love this. So like for me, when I'm sharing, I'm present to all of that. You know, we talked about creating gratitude and then creating a vision and then putting a label in that vision so we could recall it later as a memory. So when I'm sharing this, I'm so fortunate because I get to pull up all these amazing experiences that have been my life and share them. And what I'm present to is the meaning that I've created about those experiences. And since I've created such great meaning about it, I get to, for a living, share incredible experiences and be inside of the experience of all of these incredible experiences because I'm talking about them and I'm sharing them. And so to me, I think it's just a really cool understanding. And it's share worthy. And I think every entrepreneur has some area of their life that they're like super passionate about, that they're, you know, like that they get excited about when they share. And that, to me, I think like designing a business around that is like the holy grail of experience, because then you're living in your zone every single day. And trust me, the universe will figure out the details. All you got to do is make the decision to make it happen and then let the how show up, you know?
Ooh, man. Got me excited, man. I'm pumped up over here now.
Yeah, right.
Let's go. That's awesome. Well, man, you shared some awesome nuggets right there. I'm all about the listener's success. So is there any other tips on success that you have that we might not have touched on?
Yeah. There's so many. Yeah. I mean, like just starting with, yeah, there's like, you know, one, schedule your time, you know, lay it out, look at your life. If you want to fire under your ass, go look at something called a life calendar. You know, it's your life in weeks, and you'll see all the weeks of a 90-year-old and you'll see where you are and you'll see what's left. If you want to put fire under your ass, go check that out. And hopefully that'll be a wake up call. You know, look at that every week when you're doing your scheduling process. I would also say, know your core values. You know core values. People like to shop for them like a car. You know, your core value is who you are at the essence of who you are, and honoring that and living and designing a lifestyle around that is going to be something that leads to success, long-term fulfillment. You know, because you can put yourself in situations where you're learning on a regular basis, but your core values are what you're going to always come home to. So know your core values. There's nothing more valuable than a good employee, you know, because and when you have a good employee, worship them, you know, and because they become your boss. Like that? We got you on the other side. Like a little mind jujitsu. No. So, you know, from a success standpoint, you know, partnerships. You don't need to know everything. You know, we said earlier that, you know, when Michelangelo was asked how he created David, he said, I took a piece of marble and removed what wasn't David. In that same way, you have an expert zone, stay in your expert zone and honor that, honor where you, without going out of your expert zone, what you're comfortable with and what you're not. And then obviously self-mastery all the time, but surround yourself with people who are really good at what they do. People that already know how to do what they're really good at. You know, training somebody is a pretty expensive endeavor, and they don't always stick around, right? And especially when you love them, you don't always want them to stick around. You know, it's the wrong thing,
Go
man.
fly. Yeah.
Go fly.
Be free. Yeah.
I would say measure what matters. You know, look at from the beginning there's two journeys. There's the journey of transformation and the journey of achievement. People want to feel something, they want to overcome a fear, frustration, challenge. They want to accomplish a want, need, and desire. That's the journey of transformation. And every product or service has something to do with that. And then from there, look at the journey of achievement. What is the next step? And measure those metrics every single step along the way. Just be honest with yourself. Let the data determine the direction that you go, and grow your business in a way that you can show somebody else the data of your business from an unbiased standpoint. Like, hey, listen, this is how many emails that I've collected. This is how many people are going through our organization. This is what I've tried. This is working. This isn't working, and then at the end of the day, take massive action, because you're not going to know how. Sometimes you just need to make the decision to do something and then just trust that the how is going to show up, which is how it happens every time. Right. So I would say that, like, from a mindset standpoint, and yes, I'm not somebody that spent a ton of time meditating. For me, when I sat down to meditate, it was just kind of frustrated me. I did find that I could rewire my brain through language to be more effective than people who've spent a lot of time meditating, because although the meditation quiets their mind, when their mind is chattering, that chatter needs to make sense to the brain. And so not all information is created equal. Not all conversations are created equal. If you have a really skilled, somebody like a neurolinguistic programmer like myself, somebody, we're going to be able to have a conversation where your brain gets the joke of how it's braining, and then everything becomes more efficient, and there's quantum leaps in success. This would be one that's really, really, really powerful. Man, this is so powerful. There's two ways to remember something, either from the side that it's negative or from a yeah. Like when something takes place, we said you have so much potential. The side that's negative, there's a scare to it. Oh, I'm not good enough, right? Well, your brain will remember that. The other side of it is that yeah, that feels good. Like that, yeah. So that yeah is you training your brain what it wants. When we see people that spun out, what they've done is they've taken a bad habit and they've given themselves a yeah behind it. Yeah, it feels good to drink too much, or yeah, coffee. And, they've literally further pushed that motor program into their brain by affirming that it's good. Well, you can train yourself to do anything. If you give yourself a yeah, like when you exercise, man, how that feels so good when I lift that weight. Yeah, your brain is going to migrate towards the yeah. And so if you give yourself that, yeah, and it will continue to expand. Like if you feel gratitude, you're just like, oh, that feels good to feel gratitude. Oh, it feels good to schedule myself. Oh, it feels good not to argue. Oh, it feels good. And you train your brain. That yeah is going to push that program into your mind. And eventually your whole life will be a yeah. And it goes back to saying, that Einstein said you can't solve a problem with the same thinking that created it. When you have a problem in your thought, you're witch hunting the initial notion of truth that there's a problem at all. Maybe we're born into heaven right now and we can believe in the illusion otherwise, but that becomes the filter on the present moment. And so if we really awesome the right stuff in our life, then we're going to ultimately train our brain to focus on the things that produce effective behavior and produce effective results inside of our life. And that is in each person's control to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's super powerful. Exploding my mind right now, man. So I want to hear about the retreats that you guys are doing. What's that look like, and kind of how's that going?
Yeah. So we do these retreats about every 3 months. They're inner circle retreats. They were originally designed for me to train my facilitators, but then we got so many people coming to them now that we've kind of changed it a little bit. I've got to have another retreat for the facilitators, my team, and kind of open this up more. But we go through movement. We go through, all movement can be broken down into 7 primal patterns, which is kind of like the alphabet of movement. And movement pumps fresh blood around your organ system. So we look at movement, we look at nutrition, we look at communication and thought pretty heavily. As you can see, there's a conversation for transformation. Well, we kind of create this container for the real big ahas there, and then carry them into our world. And then we have some special stuff that we do on the weekends that are it's mind altering, so to speak.
Cool.
Yeah. And we, that's always been a fun, good time, our little habits, so to speak, our rituals.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, it's really good. We come together. We have people come out from California, from New Jersey. I'm in New Jersey, but we hosted this one in Florida, and we just really build and bond and build community. And I think one of the coolest parts about those retreats is that there's an exchange of like, it lives beyond me. Like it isn't like the people. I'm always trying to put the power of now into somebody's hands so that they can do what they want. And what I've found that's been for me one of the greatest things is people come out there, they get to know each other, and now all of a sudden they're doing business and they're growing businesses and they're launching all kinds of shit. I had no idea what's going on. Like I hear about it like a month or two later on. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, yeah. I didn't know you guys went into business together. Oh yeah, you met at the retreat? Yeah, so, oh cool. Like they're like, oh yeah. So I think that's kind of one of the rewards of holding space like that. I think that anytime you have people coming together under a similar intention, right? And we know that intention's in language, right? Our last retreat was play. So everybody came together, all these executives, and it was play. When you have everybody uniting under that similar intention, just the learning mechanisms that show up are just really powerful, really, really, really powerful. And like I said, we're surrounded by amazing people, and so everybody comes and contributes. And I think that's the synergy that we've created here in True Living, is just that sincere lifestyle of professional development. And especially as an entrepreneur, it's hard because sometimes you're alone in the industry. It's like, where do you really go as an entrepreneur to co-elevate? It's, and you can focus on your business, but you're not really focused on yourself, and you bring you everywhere you go. So I think that's one of the powers that we've created here at these retreats, and particularly in our coaching community.
That's so cool. So you got the retreats, and then you got one-on-one coaching. Anybody can do one-on-one coaching pretty much?
Yeah. We do one-on-one coaching. We have a group model. So the one-on-one coaching has been, that's really awesome. I do one-on-one coaching. Our facilitators do one-on-one coaching. It's a 3-month intensive, and we really dive deep, really practical, really structured. And it's amazing because I think that most people come in for one thing and they get something completely else. They get that plus, this other area of their life that they had no idea. Lots of relationship breakthroughs, lots of health breakthroughs, a lot of stuff there. We call that the greatest transformational experience on earth, is the one-on-one coaching, because it's just so freeing. You get done and you're like, man, I'm just free to create. And then your limit is what do you want to create? And then our group coaching is very similar. What we've done is we said, well, one, we're going to put people on a team, and we're going to help them keep accountable to themselves so that they can implement some of the conversations that we're having, right? That became the first thing. And then we said, well, but as an entrepreneur, we need to have like open office hours. So like real structural stuff, like, hey, I have a CRM. How can I get this going? Or hey, I have a sales process. How can I get this going? So what we did is we created open office hours for everybody to come in there and kind of like co-network, and then have some of the business coaches that are real tactical just answer questions. Hey, let's build an online course. Here's the platform that you can use. I'll answer your questions. Oh, let's build a CRM. Oh, you need a phone software system, so that became very tactical. So we kind of split it up. The journey of transformation being these group calls, and then the one-on-one nudges in that group. And then the journey of achievement being very tactical, business-minded stuff, set up a base camp out, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's so cool. Just a couple more questions, and then so have you, since you do all this stuff, have you noticed a correlation between when people really kind of get their health together, their wealth kind of comes together, and a lot of their life kind of tends to work out more?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, so the mechanism that has that self, here's the best way to describe this. When I say I'm going to turn the TV off at 7:30 p.m., I say that with myself, quote unquote, right? It's the same mechanism that has me self-disciplined when it comes to eating food, and the same mechanism that has me show up on time and honor the agreements inside of my life. It's my use of language to myself. When we're looking to do something like diet or do something health-oriented, exercise more frequently, and we give our word to that, when we honor our word to that, we strengthen our sense of self. When we don't, we no longer believe in ourselves. That makes sense. Literally, our identity ceases to exist as a believable thing inside of our mind. So yeah, like in other words, like if I want to have somebody have a breakthrough in any area, all I need to do is go to an area where they're really committed to. And then once they start becoming disciplined in that area, self-discipline shows up in every area, because self-discipline is a universal mechanism. They're not like it's your believability. It's your ability to accomplish what you say you're going to accomplish universally.
Yeah.
So when we see people really looking inward for that intuitive awareness of how their food is responding to their body, we see that same discipline in the decision making around their business that results in success. So yes, absolutely. You focus on one area of your life. And that's one of the things that's really important is when we come in, it's like, what's the one area of your life that you want to change and transform? And let's focus on that area, because we know that if you have a breakthrough there, it's going to ripple all across the board. But the thing is most of the time people where they think they're going to have a breakthrough, for example, I get a lot of men entrepreneurs or women entrepreneurs too. Actually, women, this is equal for both of them, right? But they come in and they want to make more money. Great. Why do you want to make more money? So that I can spend more time, with my husband, and I can send my kids to school and blah, 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 blah. Okay, great. Well, so do you really want to make more money, or do you want to have a better relationship? Do you really want to make more money, or do you want time freedom? And then when we start looking at things, what we start recognizing is there's this one area of your life that's like the real deal, that really matters, that you really want to improve. And then there's this symptom of that area. And that's where you've been focusing, but you haven't been getting results. I want to have a better relationship with my wife. So, and every time I sit down and talk to her, we talk about going on vacation. We talk about buying a house. So I've just been slaving in the office to make it happen. And no matter what we do in the office, it ain't going to happen, because the mentality of trying to get it there in the office versus at home, where you have that connection, you develop the relationship skills with your wife, and now all of a sudden you bring that to your job, it just changes everything. So we have to be really brutally honest with ourselves of that one area. And in fact, I would say, that one area, most people that are listening already know that area, and they probably thought of that area and they're like, no, you can't be talking about that area. I'm like, yeah, that's the area. That's the area that we want to have a breakthrough in. And if you're bold enough to focus there, you'll have a breakthrough in both, in every other area of your life, because how you do anything is how you do everything. And if you have a breakthrough there, you carry it over.
Yeah, man, that's so cool. Well, man, you blow my mind today. This has been great. So I got one more question, but before we get to it, why don't you tell everybody the best places to find you online and the ways to get in contact with you?
Yeah. So I think the best way, we just got a new number. I think the best way is to text us, at 908-441-7304, or check out at truelivingbonus.com. We're giving away a immediate results training. And the immediate results training is actually it's a furthering of what we're talking about here. We literally deliver $1,000 worth of found time, energy, agreement, and money. And there's a training component that goes with it, because there's something called a value gap, which we'll talk about. And that value gap is what has people desiring to purchase something. So when you understand that somebody's desire to purchase something is based off of the way that they view the world, and you're able to identify the way that they view the world, and then you're able to create a value gap, which is their current situation relative to their desired situation, measured in time, energy, agreement, and money. And what you offer is a fraction of that, then it really is profoundly impactful, because now you're speaking the language that people want to hear, because that's what they're looking for anyway. And so we have a training where we teach this, and we do it by delivering that value in somebody's life. And anybody that goes to truelivingbonus.com can schedule a free training and just have that immediate result that is implied with the immediate results training at truelivingbonus.com.
That's so cool, man. I think everybody should go check that out. So the last question that I'm asking all my guests is, what motivates you, or what is motivation?
Ooh. To me, that what motivates me, I would say, is that that the hunting the yeahs. I don't always know what's in store in every experience, because I've never had that experience. But I think that there's a sense of gamification or fun that goes with discovering your next that's to me, that's motivating. I don't know, maybe that's a corny answer or something, but I just think that's why not?
Yeah, man. Well, that's what life's about, man. It's just like finding what you really enjoy and going all in and saying, yeah, let's do it, Get that full image, fists up. Yeah. All right, man. Well, it's been so awesome having you on. I'm sure everybody listening got a ton of value. Is there any last word you'd like to have before we wrap it up?
No, I just I'm grateful to be here, and you're an amazing host. Thank you. And I guess the last word of wisdom is it isn't going to happen unless you take action. It just isn't going to happen unless you take action, and just take action. Find a mentor, find somebody that's out there, somebody like yourself, somebody who's walked the path, and get in touch with them and ask that question of like, hey, what would it look like if whatever that wants to be, whatever you want that to be, and just find out, because I think that everybody's out there to contribute. Everybody wants to contribute. I don't know anybody that's not trying to change the world on some level. And I think that there at times can be a deficit of people being open about what they want to accomplish, that we're in such abundance that sometimes we're not open about what we want to accomplish. But if you ask yourself, the right questions, and you remember that it isn't going to happen unless you take action, and part of that action is getting in touch with the right mentor, then your whole life will transform. Mine has, and I speak for everybody, that's the way that it happens.
Yeah. Well, at least somebody's doing it and figuring it out, man. So the rest of us can just tag along. That's so sick.
Wow, it's like the whole thing is like, what?
Yeah.
Why didn't they teach me this in school?
For real.
What were you guys doing? I remember when they were like, you're not going to be, you need to know how to do your math, because it's not like you'd be walking around with a calculator in your pocket,
right. Oh man.
So,
all right. Well, everybody, so they can text that phone number. Why don't you read it one more time?
Yeah. It's 908-441-7304. Just let me know where you heard. Just send us a text, say I'm in, hey, what's up? Heard Mike on the show, and we'll respond. And then truelivingleaders.com is our website. We've got a pretty cool event summit that's going on there in March. We've got an amazing group of people that are going to be speaking. Cool. truelivingbonus.com, for that immediate results training. You got to get it. It's really, really, really valuable. We're just serving people. It's nice to be able to do that, Rob. It's nice to be able to help as many people as we do. And we're not like hard selling anybody on there. We're just looking to provide massive value. So I think everybody should take advantage of that.
Yeah, will do, man. That's awesome. Well, thank you everybody for listening. Today has been awesome. Be sure to like and share with somebody especially if you got some value. Somebody else will probably love to hear this too. So share with a friend, and everybody take care. Until next time. Bye.